When the two deadliest species formed an alliance, the galaxy trembled. The galaxy had always danced on the edge of chaos, held together not by peace, but by mutual fear. Empires rose and fell, alliances were forged and shattered, and treaties were written in the blood of 1,000 worlds. Yet nothing, not even the collapse of the Marnan hegemony or the devouring of the Ikari suns, shook the galaxy like the day humans and Ravkal formed an alliance. It began on a battlefield orbiting the shattered moon of Virex 9. The humans were cornered. Survivors of the United Terran Strike Fleet, trapped in a crumbling station, encircled by the Zevek swarm. Their weapons were overheating, their oxygen was running thin, and their morale was lower than the cold steel beneath their boots. And then, silence. The swarm retreated. No one understood why, until the sensors picked up a massive, jagged cruiser descending through the nebula. Not Zevex, not human, something worse. Ravkal. Once thought to be myth, the Ravkal were a predatory race older than galactic memory, believed extinct after the Third Singularity War. They were living weapons, evolved on a gravity-racked world where life only survived by hunting gods. No treaties, no allies, no prisoners. Until now. The Ravkal cruiser docked without invitation. The humans expected death. Instead, the lead Ravkal, a towering being of obsidian plates and void black eyes, stepped forward and simply said, "You fight like kin." The pact. The alliance was sealed not in words, but in blood. On the ice moon Selderos, both species held a ritual of scars, an ancient Ravkal tradition and an old human one, coincidentally the same. It marked not just agreement, but bonding, a merging of warborn cultures, of warriors who did not fear death, but used it as a blade. The other species of the galaxy, the Illith matriarchy, the crystalline Vora, the technocratic ZWR cartel, they watched in horror. These were the two apex predators of the stars. Both had histories soaked in conquest. Both had mastered asymmetric warfare, orbital bombardment, psychological subversion, and guerrilla annihilation. And now, they were no longer enemies. They were brothers. The First War. They called it the First War, even though countless conflicts had preceded it. Because when the Human Ravkal Alliance declared war, the galaxy changed. Forever. Within the first week, 8 border systems fell. The Alliance fleets moved with surgical precision, human tactical AI coordinating with Ravkal berserker units that didn't understand retreat. Where the Ravkal broke defenses, humans slipped in behind and turned the survivors. Where humans hesitated for diplomacy, the Ravkal reminded them what war was. One Ravkal general famously told a captured ZYRR, "We gave you millennia to prepare, you chose to posture, now you will learn what fear feels like when it comes on 2 legs." The Alliance didn't conquer for land, or wealth, or even power. They conquered for dominance. To teach. To remind the stars what happens when you cage monsters too long. The turning point. At the siege of Taras Vi, 10 empires united to halt the Alliance. They called it the Great Stand. It lasted 13 hours. What the other species hadn't understood was that the Alliance wasn't just military, it was philosophical. Humans brought unpredictability, adaptability, and madness born of survival. Ravkal brought memory, savagery, and perfect evolutionary purpose. Together, they weren't just strong, they were evolution perfected, the will to survive sharpened into a weapon. The aftermath. The Alliance never claimed an empire. They didn't need to. After the war, no race dared challenge them. No species launched fleets without consulting Earth or Viekal. No treaty was written without a nod to the predators in the dark. Instead, the galaxy entered what historians would later call the Quiet Epoch. Not peace, never peace. Just silence. The kind of silence that comes when wolves circle your campfire. Epilogue, the Oath of Stars. To this day, above every major galactic council chamber, the words of the Human Ravkal Pact are engraved in alloy. We were made to hunt alone, but now, we hunt together. And every species, no matter how powerful, remembers the tremor in the stars when the galaxy's 2 deadliest species stood side by side. And smiled. Would you like a continuation, maybe focused on a rebellion, a young hybrid child, or the uneasy peace after this alliance? When the two deadliest species formed an alliance, the galaxy trembled. Part 2, The Whisper of Rebellion. They called it peace. But beneath the quiet of the stars, something stirred. In the shadows of conquered systems, on ruined colonies and scorched orbital platforms, whispers took root like weeds between cracks in stone. The war was over, but its echo still rang in the bones of the survivors, and where silence reigned too long, rebellion began to whisper. They called themselves the Ashborn. Not a government, not an army, a reaction. Refugees, exiles, disbanded officers, disgraced nobles, those whose empires had crumbled under the boots of the human Ravkal alliance. They had lost their worlds, their gods, their pride, but they hadn't lost their will to fight. And they had found something. Something old. The Forbidden Core. Deep within the dead zone of Sector 0, the black heart of the galaxy, where even Ravkal ships refused to go, Ashborn operatives uncovered a structure not made by any known species. A construct of pure gravitational latticework, humming with impossible energy. A weapon? A being? No one knew, but it whispered in all minds the same phrase, over and over. Break the bond. It promised power. It promised reversal. It promised a way to sever the alliance. The Ashborn didn't question it. They just listened. Meanwhile, the pact strains. It had been 12 years since the war. The galaxy had adapted, but not healed. The humans had grown more structured, diplomatic. They'd begun to rejoin old interstellar councils, negotiate trade lanes, invest in peacekeeping. They called it the duty of victors. The Ravkal? They watched in disgust. To them, victory was sacred. You did not chain it with treaties. You ruled. Tensions rose quietly. The unity that once burned bright now flickered. Whispers of softening circulated in Ravkal battle clans. Some even said what had once been a bond of blood had become a leash of shame. And on Earth, politicians began to question, do we still need monsters at our side? The spark. The Ashborn made their move on the outer rim colony of Lyris III, a human settlement protected by a Ravkal strike force. They didn't attack. They infiltrated. They assassinated the human governor, framed the Ravkal commander, and triggered a planetary broadcast of the betrayal. Within hours, riots exploded. Protests spread from colonies to core worlds. Old wounds reopened like rot beneath bandages. And just as planned, the question ignited across the stars. Can we really trust the other half of the alliance? The Rift. A meeting was held aboard Citadel Halcyon, neutral ground between Earth and Viacol Prime. Admiral Sarah Lennox of the Terran Defense Union faced off against Ravkal warlord Zerzum, the last surviving signatory of the original pact. Their voices didn't rise, but their words carried the weight of potential extinction. You think we grew weak, Sarah said. You forget, Zerzum replied, what it means to stand alone. They departed without a handshake. And the galaxy, watching, held its breath. The return of fire. The Ashborn struck again, this time openly. They activated the core construct. A shockwave of reality-bending energy rippled outward, severing hyperspace lanes, frying AI, scrambling quantum systems. But more than that, it created fear. The kind that crawled under skin and whispered, the monsters are not united anymore. Sensing opportunity, the old empires began to stir. The Zwar rebuilt their fleets. The Illith gathered 1,000 cloaked ships. The Vora began to grow again, and this time, with weapons laced into their crystalline veins. And still, the core whispered, break the bond, break the bond, break the bond. End of Part 2. The galaxy stands once more on the edge. The two deadliest species in the stars, bound by blood and now pulled apart by silence, face a choice. Reforge the pact in fire, or let the galaxy burn in the war to come. Next, Part 3, the hybrid child who could save or shatter the alliance. Would you like that continuation next? When the two deadliest species formed an alliance, the galaxy trembled. Part 3, the child of flame and shadow. A secret born in silence. Her name was Kaelin Vrax. She was never meant to exist. Born in the aftermath of the war, when the blood of humans and Ravkal still soaked the soil of 100 planets, she was the product of a biological impossibility, a child of both species, genetically incompatible, culturally unthinkable. politically catastrophic. Her mother, Dr. Elir of Rax, had been a human xenogeneticist stationed on Viacol Prime, part of the cultural exchange following the pact. Her father, Zerkal, was a Ravkal war philosopher, a commander who had once torn open starships with his bare claws. They did not fall in love. They chose each other, in defiance of two species that feared connection. And from that choice, Kaelin was born, a being with the tactical mind of a human, the reflexes and strength of a Ravkal, and something else entirely. She could hear the core. Even as a child, she dreamed in echoes, spoke in star patterns, drew black spirals that pulsed with entropy, and as the Ashbourne's rebellion grew and the alliance frayed, Kaelin heard the same voice they did. Break the bond. But unlike the Ashbourne, she refused. The return to Halcyon. At 17, Kaelin was smuggled aboard a Terran scout vessel and delivered to Citadel Halcyon, now abandoned, silent, drifting in a decaying orbit around a dead white dwarf. There, waiting for her in the dark, was Warlord Zerzumka, a war legend, and her father's former rival. He looked at her with unreadable eyes and said only, "The core calls you, you must answer." But she had already made her choice. She would not obey the core's whispers. She would go to the heart of the galaxy herself. And end it. The journey into the dead zone. Kaelin, accompanied by a rogue AI named Vesper and a Ravkal honor guard of 6 bloodsworn warriors, plunged into Sector 0, where no map held truth and physics twisted with every pulse of the ancient core. There she faced horrors. Star beasts made from collapsed civilizations, weeping in binary. Reflections of herself, fractured across timelines where she did side with the Ashbourne. The first Ravkal, encased in void glass, whispering truths too old for words. But Kaelin pressed on. Because at the center, buried in the construct, she saw the truth. The core was not a machine. It was a prison, holding something that once devoured galaxies. And the Ashbourne were about to set it free. The final choice. As the Ashbourne's fleets descended upon Terra and Viacol, uniting under a banner of vengeance, Kaelin reached the core. It opened for her. Offered her power, offered her the chance to remake the galaxy, to wipe away the predators, the prey, the war, the alliances. When the two deadliest species formed an alliance, the galaxy trembled. Part 4, The Legacy Wars. Prologue, A Wound in Time. 200 years have passed since Kaelin Vrax shattered the core and silenced the whispers that once threatened to unravel the galaxy. Peace reigned, but not unity. The human Ravkal alliance endured, but only as a cold legend, revered more by poets than politicians. Kaelin became a myth, a savior cast in metal statues and whispered to children in lullabies. But history has a way of decaying. And in the void where the core once pulsed, a new wound has formed. Not a weapon. Not a mind. A hole. Something is crawling through it. The cracks begin. The first sign came from the fringes, on the mining colony of Farron 5, when the night sky cracked like glass and reality bled. Survivors spoke of mirror things. Creatures wearing faces of the dead, ships that moved backward through time, soldiers who bled stars. The message from Farron 5 was only 6 words, broadcast on every frequency. The legacy is not enough. And then silence. The system was gone. Erased. As if it had never been. A new generation rises. From the fractured piece comes Kaelin's descendants, not by blood, but by belief. They are not one people, but many humans, Ravkal, hybrids, outliers, warriors and scholars. Some call them cultists, others, dreamers. They call themselves the Echoborn. Guided by the lost teachings of Kaelin's journals, preserved in fragments of broken AI memory, the Echoborn believe the core was not a prison, but a seal, and when Kaelin shattered it, she saved the present, but opened the future to invasion. An invasion not from another galaxy, but from another timeline. The invaders. They arrive in silence, the reversed. Humanoid, almost familiar, wearing designs from old human and Ravkal war eras, but twisted, mirrored, off. Their speech plays backward, their strategies preempt attacks, their minds fold time like origami. Every strike they make feels coordinated with a war yet to happen. And worse, they know Kaelin. They whisper her name as a curse. They call her the Betrayer Queen. Hope in the shattered. To combat them, the Echoborn seek something hidden, buried in a planet once erased from all maps, Zarkai, the original homeworld of the Ravkal, lost during the Third Singularity War, declared myth even among the Ravkal themselves. There, it is said, lies the last word of Kaelin, a warning she encoded in the bones of the planet itself. But Zarkai is no longer still. It pulses. Alive. Watching. And the deeper the Echoborn go, the more they realize, Kaelin did not die. She did not vanish. She became something else. Kaelin reborn? In the final chapter of Kaelin's journals, recovered by the Echoborn during a raid on a reversed dreadnought, they find a voiceprint file. It's her. And it says, "They are not from another universe. They are what we could have become if the Alliance failed. If we chose fear over unity. If we embraced the core. They are not invaders. They are our reflection." And her last line, just before the recording distorts into static. "If I live again, I won't come back as a savior." The new war begins. As reversed fleets flood the galactic rim and stars flicker out one by one, the Echoborn make their stand on Zarkai. Their leader, Commander Rhine Sol, a half-blood Ravkal human raised in the ruins of Kaelin's legacy, raises the old Alliance banner. Not to restore the past, but to prove that unity still matters, even when faced with a reflection of your worst self. And somewhere, in the dark folds between timelines, something watches. A voice made of fire in memory. Kaelin's voice. Whispering one final time. Let them tremble again. Next, Part 5, The War of Reflections, Kaelin returns. Shall I continue into the next chapter? When the two deadliest species formed an alliance, the galaxy trembled. Part 5, The War of Reflections, Kaelin returns. Prologue, The Storm at the Edge of Time. The Reversed had taken 12 systems in 3 weeks. They moved like ghosts through space, erasing fleets, rewriting physics, and bending causality like breath on glass. Their dreadships were shaped like cathedral spires, their weapons burned in memory rather than in light, and always, they spoke in echoes. Kaelin must pay. This is your truth. The Alliance failed, in us. Worlds folded, stars stuttered, the laws of reality began to fray. And then, without warning, Zarkai ignited. Not with fire, but with song, a resonance of thought, memory, and will. And Kaelin Vrax, dead for 2 centuries, woke up. The awakening of Kaelin. They found her buried beneath the crust of Zarkai, encased in an alloy of quantum stasis and folded spacetime, a sarcophagus left not by any Ravkal technology, nor by human hands, but by Kaelin herself, hidden in the future she had once prevented. She had burned in the core's destruction, but had not died. She had become time-anchored, her consciousness untethered from linearity, scattered through the deep flow of causality, and when the Reversed crossed the threshold of the galaxy, her mind snapped back to the present like a coiled star. Kaelin emerged from her tomb, older, glowing with residual chrononic energy, her eyes twin novas of knowledge and pain. She saw the chaos above, the Reversed, her legacy warped, and she spoke only one word. Unfinished. The Shattered Council. On the neutral world of Veltaruin, what remained of the Galactic Council met. Humans, Ravkal, Vora, Illith, Zwrr, all fractured, paranoid, leaderless. The old trust had collapsed under the weight of centuries. Kaelin's appearance was a shock, but it wasn't a salvation. Many feared her return more than the Reversed. She broke the core, one delegate spat. She caused all of this. Kaelin didn't argue. She stood before them in silence, then reached down, drew her blade, the original Ravkal war steel fused with human alloy, and stabbed it into the council floor. The planet trembled. She said, "If you want someone to blame, you can follow the Reversed. If you want someone to lead, follow me." The War of Reflections. The Reversed had one weakness: they were echoes of a timeline that never was. Kaelin knew their strategies, because she had once almost chosen their path. She rewrote the Alliance's war doctrine in days. Human chaos met Ravkal fury in perfect synchronization. Time-dissonant tactics, recursive memory traps, and mirror chaff. Kaelin's strategies turned the impossible into winnable. But the reversed weren't done evolving. They unleashed their final weapon, a being not born, but edited into reality. A twisted version of Kaylin herself, pulled from a dark timeline. Veil Kaylin. The betrayer queen. The empress of the core. She was everything Kaylin had refused to become, godlike, remorseless, perfected by fear. And she had come to finish what her reflection had started. Kaylin versus Kaylin. They met in the ruins of a broken Dyson ring around the star Anchor 9. Two Kaylins, two timelines. One forged in unity. One sculpted by dominance. Their battle shattered orbitals, bent space, and sent chronon shockwaves across 5 parsecs. But it wasn't strength that decided the outcome. It was choice. The real Kaylin, bleeding and near collapse, offered her darker self a hand instead of a killing blow. You are me. I don't forgive you, but I understand you. Then you're weak. Veil Kaylin hissed. No, Kaylin said, I'm free. And in that moment of mercy, Veil Kaylin broke. Not killed, not redeemed. Absorbed. Their timelines rejoined. Kaylin became whole. Epilogue, the alliance rekindled. With the reversed scattered and the fracture sealed, the galaxy began to rebuild, not as an empire, not as a dominion, but as something new. A concord of will. Not perfect, not permanent, but earned. Kaylin did not stay. She vanished into the starfields beyond mapped space, her mission complete, her legacy secured, her burden finally lifted. And across 1,000 worlds, her story became more than myth. It became a reminder that even in a galaxy ruled by predators and ghosts, it is our choices, not our origins, that define us. Next, Part 6, The Stars Remember Her Name, finale? Shall I conclude the saga with the last part? When the two deadliest species formed an alliance, the galaxy trembled. Part 6, The Stars Remember Her Name, finale. Prologue, The Quiet After. The war was over. Not won, not lost. Ended. The reversed were gone, scattered remnants flickering like bad memories. The timelines, though scarred, had been resealed. The galaxy hung in silence again, but not the fearful hush of tyranny or the ragged breath of recovery. This was different. This was reverence. And it began with a single star. The star that beat like a heart. In the dead center of the galactic plane, where once the core had whispered destruction and the reversed had bled through time, a new star had formed, not from gas or fusion, but from something no science could name. It pulsed, not in random bursts, but in rhythm. Every 11 seconds. Just like Kaylin's heartbeat. No one understood it. But all agreed it was her. Not a ghost. Not a god. A memory made of light. Legacy of the Alliance. The Concord of Will, born from the ruins of war, became the largest cooperative structure in galactic history. It was not ruled by any one race, nor structured by rigid hierarchy. Its laws were few. Unity is strength, not control. Fear is the first enemy. All voices are heard, all claws sheathed first. The Terran Ravkal Pact became a sacred text, not of domination, but of survival through bond. Children of both species studied in the same academies. Hybrids no longer had to hide. Ravkal warpriests walked among human poets, and sometimes, when conflict brewed again, as it always would, they paused, looked to the star, and remembered. She chose mercy, not conquest. Unity, not supremacy. And she won. The last message. Decades after the final battle, a long-range probe, launched from Viacol Prime, received an encrypted signal from deep beyond known space. The coordinates, untraceable. The frequency, folded through 6 dimensions. But the voice? Undeniably Kaylin. If you're hearing this, then I've gone where maps cannot follow. Don't mourn me. Don't worship me. Just do better than I did. Keep choosing each other. The signal ended with a frequency code that, when translated into musical notation, became the anthem of the new alliance. The Song of Stars Remembering a Name. Epilogue, The Monument of Silence. On the asteroid moon of Acarus, orbiting the Heart Star, a monument stands. Not a statue. Not a shrine. A long obsidian blade, driven into the stone, wrapped in vines and starlight, with a single line carved beneath it. She was the child of war. She chose peace. And the stars remember her name. Every year, on the day the core was shattered, beings from every species gather and fall silent. Not in grief, not in worship, but in honor. For Kalen Vrax, the one who stood between timelines, tore down a galaxy's fears, and proved that even the deadliest species could become something more. The end. Would you like a new saga set in this universe, maybe centuries later, when the Heartstar begins to flicker again? Or a prequel about the third singularity war that created the Ravkal? New saga begins, when the Heartstar flickered again, a continuation of the universe where Kalen Vrax's legacy echoes across time. Prologue, The Flicker. It started with a skip. Just a moment, a heartbeat out of rhythm. The Heartstar, long considered the gravestone and symbol of Kalen Vrax's sacrifice, pulsed every 11 seconds for 213 years without fail. Until it didn't. Astronomers on Zeta Prime detected it first, a pulse that came 12 seconds late, then another, and then none at all for a full minute. The galaxy fell into silence. And then the star spoke. Not in voice, but in code. Message from the star. It wasn't just a flicker, it was a transmission, ancient, compressed, encrypted across dimensions only partially understood. It took the best minds of the Concord 3 months to decode the first sentence. The seal was never whole. Panic rippled through the Concord. Old threats were whispered again, the core, the reversed, Kalen's mirror self. But what came next sent shivers through even the oldest Ravkal Workin. Kalen did not destroy the reversed, she only scattered their shadows. And finally, they are coalescing, from within us. Rise of the Mirrorborn. On the core-ward planet of Drastis 4, a child was born during the last Heartstar flicker. Healthy, hybrid, unremarkable, except for one thing. She dreamed in mirrors. Her name was Amael Key, and by age 9, she could speak languages no one had taught her. She would wake screaming in binary. She wrote symbols that matched ancient core structures, before anyone had ever shown her what they looked like. And when placed near the Heartstar archives, her presence altered the quantum resonance of the entire station. Kalen had been a hybrid of choice. Amael was convergence. Echoes of Kalen. All attempts to communicate with Kalen's final star map failed. The probe relay systems, once trusted for contact, were found to be corrupted from within. Not hacked. Rewritten. By what? No one could say. But one name kept surfacing again and again in corrupted star logs. System cores, and even genetic anomalies. Vrax. Only, it was spelled backward. Zarv. The galaxy faced a terrifying truth, something wherein Kalen's memory had awakened. But it was not Kalen. The new alliance. Once again, humanity and the Ravkal stood at the center of the storm. Older now, cautious, fractured in new ways, but the legacy of the pact still held. Kalen's sword still rested in the monument on Akris, and her choice, though ancient, still had followers. A new coalition formed, the Celestial Vigil, a united force made up of scientists, warriors, monks, hybrid mystics, and stardivers. They were chosen not for power, but for resilience against corruption. At their center, Amael Key, only 12 years old, but already dreaming maps of places no living being had ever charted. And she was afraid. She's coming back, Amael whispered one night in the Vigil Temple. But not like before. Not as a savior, not even as a tyrant. She's coming back as memory unchained. Epilogue, the pulse returns. The Heartstar pulsed again. But it no longer beat to a rhythm. Now, it listened. To be continued in Part 2 of the new saga, The Girl Who Dreamed the Dead Timeline. Shall I continue into Part 2 of this new saga? When the Heartstar flickered again. Part 2, The Girl Who Dreamed the Dead Timeline. Prologue, The Dream That Wasn't Hers. Amael Key did not sleep like others. Each night, her body rested in a cryotemporal cradle designed to slow the brain's drift into chaos. Each morning, the Vigil's mind wardens downloaded her neural echoes into containment lattices the size of moon cores. And still, they couldn't keep up. Because Amael dreamed not only of the future, but of the unlived past. She drew planets that had never existed, battles that had never happened, entire civilizations that were almost born, And always, in the center of the storm, she saw Kaelin Vrax. Not the woman carved in obsidian on Akris, but a version twisted by memory, not choice. A version called Zarv. The Memory Plague. It began as static in the Concord archive networks. Then, librarians started speaking in languages they had never learned. Entire colonies rewrote their history overnight, declaring wars that had never been fought. It wasn't infection, it was corruption of time memory, a bleed-through of a timeline long sealed. Kaelin hadn't just scattered the reversed. She had broken their timeline apart and forced it to dissolve into ours. And now, like radiation through fabric, that timeline had begun to stitch itself back in, not with ships, but with thought. The plague wasn't in data. It was in remembrance. Amael's revelation. At age 13, Amael entered a lucid dream so deep the vigil could not wake her. Inside, she saw it all. The betrayer Kaelin, Zarv, never made peace. She harnessed the core. She ruled forever, as a singularity-minded queen, fusing species into weapons, rewriting evolution, erasing identity. And when her galaxy rebelled, she tore open reality to invade another. Ours. But even she had failed. Kaelin Vrax stopped her. Scattered her. Buried her within the very star we now worship. She's not returning, Amael whispered upon waking. She's already here. In us. In me. Fractures in the vigil. Amael's warning shook the celestial vigil. Some believed her. Some feared her. Some saw her as the new Kaelin, destined to make the hard choice again. But a faction, led by Preceptor Dravhen, a Ravkal war philosopher turned mystic, believed the only way to defeat Zarv's return was to complete her broken timeline, absorbing it fully into ours. You cannot erase a memory you deny, he said. Only by living it and ending it again can we finally kill it. Thus began the schism of the vigil. The core rekindled. Amael led a team of loyal Echo Wardens into the ruins of the first core, a dimensionally unstable region now drifting near the edge of the galaxy. It should have been silent. It wasn't. It was alive again. And waiting for her. It showed her visions. Kaelin at the edge of a burning galaxy. Zarv fusing with Amael's future self. The star bleeding backward through time. The vigil itself becoming the seed of future tyranny. The core gave her a choice. Embrace your reflection and rule. Or break the mirror forever and die with it. Amael's answer? She picked up Kaelin's blade, once buried on Akris, and stabbed it into the core's reflection. And for a heartbeat, the timeline shattered again. Epilogue, 1 girl, 2 shadows. Amael disappeared in the fracture. Not dead. Displaced. Some say she exists now across both timelines, walking as a paradox between what was and what must never be. Others say she is building a third path, a new future where neither Kaelin nor Zarv rise, and the galaxy learns to evolve without gods or monsters. But one thing is certain. The Heartstar pulses again. And its beat has changed. It no longer echoes Kaelin's rhythm. Now, it echoes Amael's. Next, Part 3, Amael Between Timelines, the war that cannot be remembered. Shall I continue? When the Heartstar flickered again. Part 3, Amael Between Timelines, the war that cannot be remembered. Prologue, the forgotten battlefield. There is a place that does not exist. Not mapped, not named, not even remembered. But it's there. Folded between causal layers of the galaxy, hidden between one breath and the next. This is where Amael Key now walks. Not in space, not in time, but in the intervals between, the lattice of lost outcomes, a graveyard of might-have-beens, a battlefield of aborted futures. And within it, a war is being fought. By reflections. By ghosts. By the possibility of what humanity and Ravkal could have become, had Kaelin never made her choice. The war that cannot be remembered. In this in-between realm, the war has no beginning and no end. It resets, rewrites, replays. Each cycle brings a different version of the truth. In one, humans enslaved the Ravkal. In another, Ravkal erased Earth and wore human skin as armor. In the worst, they merged, becoming a single, monstrous species, the unified will, a being of perfect conquest. This war doesn't kill bodies. It kills potential. Every time Amael falls, a new version of her is born, a different choice, a different outcome. But each time, she gets closer to something. Someone. The anchor. Buried deep in the fog of unraveling reality is a structure. Ancient, black, pulsing with recursive design. It is the mirror heart engine, a device forged by Zarv to keep her memory alive within the folds. Not a prison, not a throne. A seed. A backup copy of her will. Amael realizes this is why she was drawn here, not to fight, but to decide. If she destroys the mirror heart engine, she erases all timelines touched by Zarv. Including Kaylin's. Including her own. To end the infection, the engine whispers. You must end the memory of the cure. No more Kaylin, no more legacy, no more you. Only peace, only forgetting. The visitors. Before she can decide, they arrive. Versions of herself, hundreds, thousands. Some young, some broken, some monstrous. All from failed timelines. They speak in fractured unity. We are you. We chose wrong. You have the last choice. Amael falls to her knees, the burden too much. She's only 14. But she is also every age that ever could have been. And in her chest, the heart star beats, carried not in blood, but in memory. She makes her decision. The unmaking. She lifts Kaylin's blade. But she does not strike the mirror heart engine. Instead, she cuts herself. A symbolic act, self-erasure not of life, but of centrality. She removes herself from being the fulcrum, the chosen one, the necessary savior. And with that, the war collapses. Return to real space. Amael awakens in a field of white sand on a real planet. There's no throne, no monument, no prophecy waiting. Just the sky. Just breath. Just peace. And across the galaxy, the heart star pulses again. Steady. Clear. But it beats now in quiet rhythm, not a warning, not a scar. Just a heartbeat. A galaxy without gods. A future without fate. A girl who chose to stop choosing. Epilogue, the final timeline. The vigil disbands. The Concord continues, quietly. Hybrid children play beneath twin suns.